This conference will now be recorded.
You were exactly on time. Nobody would have known you were lost, Bill, unless you would have told. Your vision's in my head. It turned 6 o'clock. And since it turned 6 o'clock, let's call the North Front Range Transportation Air Quality Planning Council meeting to order. I didn't give you a warning. Alex, I'm sorry. You good?
No, we're good.
Okay, thank you, sir. Kindly join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'd like to open our meeting for comments from the public, up to 2 minutes on matters that would affect the North Front Range NPO. Any public comments? Seeing none, we will close public comments and ask for an acceptance of the meeting agenda with one change. Mr. Silverstein is fallen ill and will not be able to be with us this evening. There is a handout, so just please note that change. Is that a motion that we need to accept that?
No, you just accept
Right.
the revised meeting agenda.
Please accept the revised meeting agenda. We do need approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look those over?
Mr. Chair.
Any changes? Yes, sir.
So moved.
Okay. Second. All right, motion by Mayor Carlsbach, second by Councilor Romano to approve the minutes. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Let's open the lead planning agency for air quality agenda. Under reports, number 3 is the Air Pollution Control Division report that is written and in your packet. Number 4 is the Regional Air Quality Council. There is a handout, and as mentioned previously, Mr. Silverstein will not be able to join us this evening. Number 5 is the North Front Range NPO Air Quality Program updates from Medora. Hi, Medora.
Hello. This will be pretty short. A few updates at the December Air Quality Control Commission meeting. The APCC adopted the moderate SIP for the 2015 ozone standard and portions of the severe SIP for the 2008 standard. And that included adoption of motor vehicle emission budgets for that moderate designation. The severe portions of the severe SIP will be under further development, including the analysis and the strategies this upcoming year. So there's more work to come on that, which leads to the next item. There is a listening session being held by APCD later this month, and the link to register is included in that memo in your packet. North Front Range staff will continue to be involved in those public engagement sessions. And then on the greenhouse gas standard, the Transportation Commission did adopt the amendment to PD 1610 at their meeting last month, and work is ongoing on fleshing out what that looks like for equity in terms of the greenhouse gas mitigation. So with that, I'll turn back to the chair and see if there are any questions.
Questions from Medora, please. Right.
With the shutdown of Suncor and the relaxation of a lot of the regulations, is there any adjustments made to the standards?
That is a question I don't know the answer to offhand, but I can look into it and send out information after the council meeting tonight.
Additional questions from Medora, please. How's your baby? Baby good?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Thank you, Medora. Appreciate it. Okay, number 5. We move on to, let's open the Metropolitan Planning Organization agenda. Under reports, number 5, a report of the chair. All I have this evening is our regular committee assignments. Right now on the Finance Committee, we have John Mallow as chair, Mayor Rittemeyer from Windsor, Commissioner Stevens from Larimer, Mayor Clark from Evans, and Johnny Olson from Greeley. I have not heard from any of those folks that they are not interested, so therefore they have been reappointed to serve on the Finance Committee. And see how that works, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm learning.
Under the HR Committee, we have Mayor Carlsbach as the chair, Mayor Pro Tem Mellon from Johnstown, Mr. Stevens from Larimer County, and Mr. Bansler from Severance. And I'm assuming everybody is still involved. Good. We do need one additional person. It would be nice to have 5 on that. And possible people to ask is listed right here as either Mayor Pro Tem Hyde or Councilor Canonico. Boom, she raised her hand just like that. Thank you, Councilor. Let it be noted that Councilor Canonico is on the HR committee. And that's what the chair has. Oh, I got one more. Scott James, Council. Oh, gosh, yes. How can I forget? And I almost did. And now I lost it. Is it in this stack? It is a certificate suitable for framing. The North Front Range Transportation Air Quality Planning Council recognizes William Karspeck, Mayor, Town of Berthoud, for his outstanding service and dedication to our region as a valued council chair and executive committee member from May 2021 through now through the end of 2022. Awarded this day, January 5, 2023. Signed Suzette Millette and me. Thank you. You certainly did your time and a half on your stick, so thank you. Well, okay. Now on to number 6, Executive Director Report. Suzette, please.
Yep, so I have a couple of things, and these are both handouts in your packet. One is that we every year go out on our VanGo program and do a survey of our VanGo participants, and again this year we rated very high. They love our program. They think we do a great job on customer service. We do a great job. Thank you to Greeley and Fort Collins for all the great job you do on fleet maintenance. So we get really high marks on those. Retention is really high. People, for whatever reason, buy VanGo for a very long time, and they tend to stay.
NPO meeting starting. I'm gonna pack up my junk, huh? Mm.
Track them down. Okay.
Good job, Alex. So just to give you a highlight of what's in there, and these are some of the comments, as again, is in your handouts, but I think really during COVID, our van pullers really appreciated all the extra effort that we did to keep them in the program, and, you know, not like waiving the seat reservation fees, so that they could stay in the program without dropping them, and that they could come back when their employer allowed them to open back up again. So we get really high marks for that, so that's one thing I wanted to point out. The other thing that is in there in your handout is our 2022 annual report, which staff has spent a lot of time on, and our past chair, our current past chair has written a letter in there as well. So you will see the letter from the chair about all of our accomplishments that we have done, and when you look back over the year and all the things that we have done, it's a lot. So you know, you don't always see it at the time you're working on it, but we have accomplished quite a bit this past year. So there are highlights of the different programs, financial, different things that have happened during the year. So take a look at that, which is why, and I would just say this is why we have to put a link sometimes in the handouts and not an attachment, because this file is pretty big. So there's that. And then the last thing I wanted to let you all know is that now all the council recordings now that we're doing will also get posted up on YouTube, starting with this meeting. So they will also be available on YouTube.
You mean we're YouTube famous?
Not yet. Will be.
Not yet. Oh my gosh.
You
The
gotta do
algorithm
something
gods.
really crazy.
Yeah. So, and that is those three things. That is what I have.
Very good. Questions for Suzette, please? Okay. Furthering in reports, the TAC report number 7 is written. The mobility report is written, and the community advisory committee, the CAC report is written. There's at least you know those in the packets. Presentations number 10 is the NISP US 27 realignment. Mr. Jeff, I thought I saw you earlier. Good to see you. Did you get a cookie?
Yes.
Whoever comes can get a cookie.
Very good.
All right. Okay. Jeff, we've been looking forward to this presentation, sir.
So do I need to go into the microphone or for our Zoom participants? Or
No, the owls pick up that for
Oh,
the
great.
folks on the
Okay.
lines.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Stala. I'm the Public Information Officer for Northern Water. And I'm honored to be here because a transportation group and air quality group inviting a water person to come join is always an interesting combination. So it's about infrastructure. And I have to tell you that this is the first presentation I've given since the Army Corps of Engineers has issued its 404 permit for the Northern Integrated Supply Project. So I had to run through all of my slides to go from tentative to got it. So I'm going to be talking briefly about the Northern Integrated Supply Project and one of its key actions that it has to take, and that is moving US 287, which under the current design of the reservoir would be the world's longest boat ramp, moving it ridge over to the east so that the reservoir can be built and traffic can continue to move. So I'm going to be very brief about just an overview of who is Northern Water. We are a special kind of special district. So we are taxpayer funded via a 1 mil property tax throughout all the areas in the light green shading. I guess over on the other monitor you can see a little bit better. We do have an ad valorem tax for folks who basically benefit from the project that we were created to partner with. We partner with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation to deliver water via the Colorado Big Thompson project, which is in fact one of our main storage reservoirs is Horsetooth Reservoir, from which Fort Collins gets about 50% of its water supply. Same with Greeley, and all the way throughout the entire northern Front Range. Who are we? So we're actually now at about 1 million people within our district boundaries, including the fastest growing communities in Colorado. You're all aware of this. But we also provide water to 615,000 acres of irrigated agriculture, which people may not know. So it's that dichotomy, that combination of irrigation water, food production, as well as municipal water supplies that makes us a little bit unique in the state of Colorado. So we manage the Colorado Big Thompson project, and it's divided into shares. So people can, and it's private property right, if you have a share of the CBT project. There were 310,000 of them created in the 30s and 40s and sold throughout the region at $1.50 each. And it took a while to sell them all because it also included a $1.50 service fee every year, and people, you never know if you're gonna have $1.50 next year. So because of the project though, and because of the flexibility of water use, that private property right has increased in value. And now those shares are going for about $75,000 each. So if you want to learn more about the water side, I'd be happy to talk to you at a later date. The one thing I would say is that our district is in total, including not just the irrigated agriculture, but also the non-irrigated, we're about 1.6 million acres, which is about the size of Delaware. And we also, with our 1 million residents, is about the size of Delaware. We're the Delaware of water districts. Okay, moving forward. So the reason why I'm here is to talk about the Northern Integrated Supply Project. It's a very complicated project, and I could do a presentation for an hour, but we're gonna keep this moving. So there are 15 participants in the project. These are communities that I would call the emerging communities in Northern Colorado. Folks like Severance, Windsor, Eaton, and even the Fort Collins Loveland Water District, where they're seeing growth occurring within their boundaries. And so they came to us in the early 2000s and said, we would like you to help us coordinate a water project so that we don't all have to do one on our own. And so via the power of the economy of scale, we have worked with these communities to create a project that does more than just provide water for the folks of Northern Colorado. You'll see there's actually 2 reservoirs here, Glade Reservoir, which we'll be talking about in just a moment. But then that second one, Gailton, to the east, is very important because it puts the integrated, into NISP. And just briefly, what you should know is that we actually have 2 water rights for NISP. The first one certainly on the Buda River. Second one is actually on the South Platte River below the confluence with the Poudre. And that is meant to pull water up into Gailton Reservoir and be distributed to farmers that are currently irrigating their crops under 2 ditch systems, the Larimer and Weld Irrigation Company and the New Cache Irrigation Company. And so that gives us 2 sources for filling Glade Reservoir. The original water right that we have on the Pooter, and then the plan is for us to have an exchange agreement with those ditch companies to be able to give them water from Gailton in exchange for the water that they currently take out of the Pooter. And so what that does, those exchanges are immensely important, and that keeps those farms north of Greeley in irrigated agriculture, instead of the alternative, which the Army Corps of Engineers recognized would be communities would go out and just purchase the property and the water rights and dry up those farms. So that's, in a nutshell, what NISP is going to be. It is development of a drinking water supply for the next generation, while also ensuring the flexibility for irrigated agriculture in northern Colorado. A couple of highlight dates are 2 big state permits. The Fish and Wildlife Mitigation Plan and the State 401 Water Quality Permit were approved within the last 5 years. The Larimer County 1041 permit was received in late 2020, and I was able to take off tentative that the federal Section 404 permit was issued in December of 2022. So that was a big milestone, and in fact, today, our board of directors at Northern Water ratified that permit. And so we now have a signed permit from the Army Corps and by our board. It's a good day. All right. So this is what I'm here to talk to you about though tonight, and that is a major component of NISP is Glade Reservoir. And it is situated in a valley that currently has a highway in it. And so let's talk a little bit about how we're going to move forward with this process. So we're going to, again, need to move that highway over, and we had to look at various alternatives for how that was going to occur. So the slide on the left, or the picture on the left, shows the alternatives that we explored for relocating that highway, and incorporating a lot of different factors and criteria that would go into deciding which was the best. And in our work with certainly the folks who were helping us to obtain permits, but also with CDOT, we determined that on the right was the best alternative. And so you can see some of the previous alternatives used places like Owl Canyon. And even one of the alternatives would have come up the west side of the reservoir. By choosing the alternative that is on the right, it actually, it accomplishes a couple of goals. Certainly it allows traffic to continue unimpeded. It's actually a shorter highway than if you were to go around on its current alignment. But the big thing is that Wholesome Cement is the major property owner along that stretch of proposed highway alignment. And so having them as a single property owner, we were able to minimize the impact to other residents within our communities. North of the Wholesome plant, or the Wholesome property, there has been some property subdivisions created, and we recognized that our alignment of 287 might, the easement might make it so that those properties were not large enough to qualify for a well permit. And so we actually have we worked with Larimer County to ensure that the rights of those undeveloped subdivided properties would still be subject verb, that those property owners would still be able to access water. And so, so again, this US 287 alignment that travels to the east side ended up being the preferred alternative. So it does remove 6 miles of 287 from Ted's Place North. So Ted's Highway 287, and I don't know if this has a pointer, but basically 287 is going to turn off at a roundabout and head up on the east side of the ridge. Highway 14, Colorado Highway 14, will continue to the west, continue to Ted's Place, and then go west up Cougar Canyon. So that's the 3 miles of 287 that's being reclassified as Colorado Highway 14. So there's 7 miles of new highway. And I talked about the 6 landowners with fee purchases that we did go in to shave off a portion of property to be able for this alignment to work. Okay, so over the course of this project, if there's one thing about a permitting process that takes almost 20 years, you're not sneaking up on anybody. However, we still find that there's a lot of folks who really don't know that this is happening in and around their community. And so over the course of the past 15 years, we've been working to reach out to the community and to engage, not just with the property owners that are very close by, but even folks as far up. We've had public meetings up in Red Feather Lakes to talk about how it might affect the realignment of this highway will affect their future commute. And so we've had certainly the EIS, that stands for Environmental Impact Statement. This project, to get that federal permit, it's under the National Environmental Policy Act. And through the Environmental Impact Statement process, we certainly had scoping meetings, open houses, things such as that. It took us a while to get through that initial portion of the Environmental Impact Statement process. That there were some concerns with the original EIS and the operations. And so we went back, and in 2015, there was a supplemental draft EIS that included something that had been requested by Fort Collins at the time, and that was for us to send about a third of the yield of the water of Glade Reservoir in the project through Central Fort Collins to improve all sorts of water quality and riparian areas. Our final EIS public comment period was in 2018. We continue to have open houses with residents who would be affected by this change in 287. We had a meeting here in Fort Collins in October 2019, and then we had an open house at the Livermore Community Building up in December 2019. And that was interesting because we realized that certainly the neighborhood would be affected, but really everyone from Livermore on also had a vested interest in us doing this correctly. We continue to certainly offer opportunities for people to interact and to learn more and ask questions. We did have a public interactive site called NISP Talk through April 21, and we still have gladereservoir.org, which we continue to update and actually have some GIS mapping that can show not just the reservoir sites, but also highway sites and even the sites of proposed pipelines. We went through the Larimer County Location and Extend process in September 21 as part of, again, the required permits for this project. And as requested, we are meeting with landowners. So there are folks who live up in that area on the east side of the ridge who do have questions and concerns, and we've actually gone up and had several meetings with them, bringing folks from CDOT and from our engineering firm consultants to meet with those residents. Okay, so ongoing work, and I apologize, I was going to have one of my engineer associates come with me, so I'm gonna have to translate her engineering ease into communication ease. And so we are currently doing a noise study to determine what are the current conditions for landowners on both sides of the ridges, honestly. That folks on the east side who want to know, is this going to be a major increase in potential noise? Same thing with the folks who live west of the reservoir and north of the reservoir in the Bonner Peak area. So property acquisitions. So this also does require some property acquisition at the north end of basically when we cross over the hogback and reconnect with the existing 287. We're coordinating with CDOT about at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, as we work to refine this project.
Jeff, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I just did. I'm curious about, as you go through the coordination with CDOT, procurement of a CMGC there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting project. I'm not saying it's good or bad, I just think it's interesting. In fact, normally when CDOT builds a United States highway or a Colorado highway, CDOT is the construction manager.
Right.
That's not the case in this part.
And so, so in our discussions with CDOT, they have stated that their preference is that we, as the enterprise, build the highway to their specifications and then hand over, I don't know if you hand over keys to a highway in the closure gates, but we will build it and build it to their spec. But it will be our project funded by the participants of NISP. And then when the highway is complete, then CDOT will take over control and it will be theirs.
Is there a warranty period with that on the highway?
There is. And actually we're going through the CMGC project, the RFP process now.
Okay.
And so we anticipate that it'll take in 23, we'll have that company selected, and at that point, be able to know what the warranty conditions will be.
Thank
you. Certainly we're coordinating with CDOT on that as well, that if CDOT says we want this amount, then that's what we will require of our contractor. Okay, and final design. We're 30% design now and plan to get to 60 in 2023, final in 24 with construction starting in 25, and that gets us to our construction timeline. So this summer, you might have noticed that there was work going on out at the site. And what that was is that was called our geotechnical design and assessment. It allowed us, so basically what we did was we removed the soil from where the axis of the dam is going to be. And so that allowed us to see all the different rock types, the interesting geology up there. I mean, this is a spot where the basalt, or not basalt, the granitic mountains and the sandstone and limestone of the plains, it's where they meet. And so we were able to go in and learn a lot about the soil out there, and the rocks. Spending a few $1 million that'll save us 10 times that amount as we get to final design and construction. Because we've learned now just what it's gonna take, what the quarries are gonna be like in terms of the rocks that are produced to produce that earth shell. The materials for the dam are all going to be sourced from within the dam footprint. And so what that means is that there won't be haul truck traffic on county roads and on the US highway out there. Okay, 2022, again, no longer tentative. We have our federal record of decision from the US Army Corps of Engineers. The next 2 years will be design of the reservoirs and design of 287. And there's just always and. 2022, 23, we'll also be designing our conveyance. And what that is getting water from point A to point B. So there will be pipelines. It's part of the federal EIS and our other permits recognized that's how we'll be conveying water to the participating communities. 25, we anticipate construction beginning on US 287 and the Glade Reservoir. We anticipate building Gailton Reservoir after that. So it's not phased, but it's just the order of operations.
Can I
Yeah,
ask a
go ahead.
question? On your pipelines, is that including pipelines that you will be to Gailton as well, or just the pipelines for Glade?
So in that first group of pipelines, 2022, 23 design and right of way, 25 construction. That is the Glade Reservoir. The pipelines to Gailton will be part of the construction of Gailton.
Okay, thank you.
So, and then in 2029, we anticipate starting to fill Glade. And we actually have a project right now going on that's giving us a lot of good information about how long things take. And that's the Chimney Hollow Reservoir project happening out west of Loveland. So we know that construction is going to take about 48 months and of the reservoir itself. And so we'll be able to start filling after that. And people say, well, how long will it take to fill? It depends on what kind of snow year we have during that period. If it's a year like this, we're anticipating this is going to be a good year for water in northern Colorado. But as long as it keeps snowing through February, March, and April. And there have been several years over the past 10 where there would have been no issues in terms of getting water into Glade Reservoir. Last year would have been more tough. And so we need to, we're certainly going to be mindful of what water resources are available. If there's another silver lining, the Poudre River has been so studied over the past 150 years that there's a lot of data about what does snowpack mean in terms of turning that into stream flow and water available for storage. Okay, so this was my final slide. I actually have a quick flyover video, and I think I'm still doing okay on time. I've got a couple minutes. And so how, just, okay.
So it should just be the Windows file that's at the bottom right.
Oh, so it's already in the tab?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. All right. So this is a quick fly-through that was produced by Mueller Engineering. So as you see, we're starting at the southern end of the US 287, and we are right now anticipating a roundabout. Our folks have been in contact with engineering at Larimer County to make sure that it's to a specification that they would need also. So this is 287 then heading north. It is, the right-of-way is going to be 300 to 400 feet, which will allow in the future 2 lanes each way. But right now, the road is planned to be built to the 2-lane highway that it is replacing. And so now the one thing, it will have a much wider shoulder though. So if you're planning on bicycling up to Laramie, it will be perhaps a lot more pleasant.
It's pleasant at all.
So as you can see, I mean, this is again on the Wholesome property. You can see some of the remnants of their activities over on the left side. There's the big power conveyance that will, power lines on the left side. There's currently a big data line under 287 going north, or next to 287 going north through the Glade Reservoir site. We will need to relocate that as well.
So the reservoir where the water is over that ridge that we're seeing up to
Yes,
the left?
so it would be over to the left, and as we go through after we go through the cut, then the helicopter will turn around and you'll be able to see the reservoir. Assuming this is a helicopter, it could be a drone. So, you see here off to the side, it's gonna be limited access highway. So property owners aren't gonna have driveways that go onto US 287. So here's the climb into the cut, and the cut is about 270 feet. There will need to be rockfall mitigation and rockfall catchers at the cut. Next time you're driving up that way, you'll kind of see the low spot before you get to Owl Canyon where the highway is going to come through. And so again, here's the cut, and the fill material for the highway will be taken from the cut as possible, and perhaps will also be used in the reservoir site. So this is coming through the cut and down into the Glade Valley. So the highway will reconnect about 3/4 of a mile south of the Bonner Springs property entrance. And you do see an entrance road as we come back, that there are some properties accessed just north of the reservoir that intersection will serve. So there will be turn lanes to allow safe turn into those properties as well. So you can see Glade Reservoir, then that's going to be pretty far south of the highway. And now we're coming back through. Other things to note, again, this is the sedimentary geology, so perhaps the CSU professors will want to come and take their students on field trips here. I know that when I was at CSU, my field trips were to Owl Canyon and the rock layers up there. So we just passed over, so the Monroe Canal is actually cuts across not only the reservoir, but then we'll have to make sure that we account for that as we build this highway to deliver Monroe Canal water to its water users in northern Colorado. So I realize that this was a very quick presentation, but I hope I gave you some food for thought, and I certainly have a few minutes here to answer questions if you have any.
Please.
So yeah, I have quite a few. So first of all, can we get a copy of the slide deck?
Yes, and actually they've been sent to Susan.
We
So.
yeah.
And
We didn't get in our.
Oh,
we
okay,
didn't
because
get
I was
it
like,
till
okay,
today.
Okay.
my apologies on that.
Then, when we're talking about shaving off or property acquisition, is that at Bonner Peak or where is?
No. This is just north of the Wholesome current property. There's no one in Bonner Peak that will be affected by this project.
What about closures? Are there gonna be closures of 287 when you're building this, or you're gonna be able to build that and not have any closures?
The highway contractors love this project because they won't need to have people holding flags. This is going to be built on property away from the current highway. So US 287 will continue in operation until the day that we hand over that section of highway to CDOT, and then the change will occur. And so there's no anticipated closures, except I might say there might be a few minor delays as we tie into the systems. At the north end, when we tie into that existing 287, but it's not going to be, I would say it's not going to be a full closure or nightmare of like I-25 where there's ongoing construction while traffic goes by.
And 14 won't be affected, like at that end? I mean, like Ted's place, like access to 14?
Correct. So Ted's place 14 will go west, and that actually will be then the entry to Glade Reservoir, and under our agreements with Larimer County, there's going to be a spot where people can park to access buses that are going up the canyon, but a little bit farther in then will be the gate to the recreation area. We purchased the KOA campground, Northern Water, through the activity. The owner was looking to downsize, and so we purchased the KOA campground. We anticipate that being used during construction, and then we anticipate that Larimer County may have an interest in using that in the future as well.
When you're talking about looking at noise levels, are you talking about noise levels of the rerouted traffic, or are you talking about noise levels as a construction is happening?
Both. And so certainly there'll be permits required for construction that have a noise element to it, but then also then ongoing, what will the noise levels be?
And then I know we don't want to, maybe we can talk offline too, but, so people are going to complain. We usually get those calls. They don't know who to call. How will that be communicated to folks who are not happy with either noise levels or dust, or whatever situation might arise?
So I would give the example right now of Chimney Hollow Reservoir, that we have an existing website with an existing contact us interaction. We've also worked with the neighbors to try to make sure that they know that they can call us for such things, so that honestly, so that we can address the problems. And so I anticipate that the lessons that we've learned at Chimney Hollow, and actually it's gone remarkably well, I think we'll be able to apply to this project.
So they won't, you don't think people will be confused, like, I don't, so you have you have NIST or Northern, you have CDOT, and you have your subcontractor that's gonna do the project. I mean, it'll be clear to folks who they need to contact when things happen.
Yes,
And
and
so it'll
so,
be Northern.
correct, that the signage will be, that this is a project being built by the NISP enterprise, coordinated by Northern Water, here's our contact. Yep.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Please.
So, and those are some of the questions that I had. I guess, and it was helpful to see the flyover. What concerns me is 287 today has a lot of crashes on it already, and it's a very dangerous corridor, and a lot of people choose not to go that way because of the fact there aren't passing lanes, there's head-on collisions and all of that. It looked like from what I saw in the flyover, most of what you're designing a building is gonna be just like it is today, that has those same safety factors. I did see the climbing lane on the hill, which is great, but we all know who drive that part of 287, people pass all the time. And so I'm just worried that, and again, maybe this is a CDOT issue or a design issue, but to rebuild a highway the same way where we already are having severe crashes doesn't seem very responsible.
Sure, and I appreciate that question. What we see when we look at our design versus current 287 is there actually are some differences in terms of what we're looking to put in versus the status quo. And you see that in the much wider shoulders, and you see that in again, those climbing hills.
But those don't solve head-on collisions for people passing when at high speeds.
Correct, and I think that that's a question, if I had a CDOT representative here, I would defer to them, because having those additional lanes also, there's some traffic number triggers that dictate, when you go to 3 lanes or even 4. And so I would defer to them in terms of are those thresholds currently being met in terms of traffic and safety on that highway. And we all know anecdotally issues that have occurred, that are occurring currently on that highway. And I would encourage, certainly, and I do encourage residents who talk to us about this, that we're not looking to start building this for several years. If it's a concern, CDOT should be on top of it now. And I would encourage.
Jeff, if I may interject,
Yeah.
And if Heather's on the line, I'd be curious. I'm certain that CDOT is looking at a safety plan on this. I can't imagine them giving you the key to go ahead without first completely examining a safety plan. And to Commissioner Stevens' point on communication, as part of your contract with your CMCG contract with your contractor, I'm sure communications plan will be part of that.
That is correct.
I just got a standard operation procedure, I would imagine.
Right, and I can follow up obviously with Heather offline on my concerns, but just from what I've seen tonight, this is the most detailed information I've seen. on this, and so I do have those safety concerns. And I'm not talking about it needs to be more lanes, I'm talking about areas for passing, because that seems to be what's contributing to the severe crashes between here and Laramie. So that's my concern, I can raise it offline, but I think it's important that we not rebuild, we don't build something new, we or you or whoever, it's something that CDOT's gonna inherit and have to do the care and feeding of for the next 50 years or more, that we have a facility that is safer in the future than it is today. And I know a lot of the other crashes are farther north and all that, but we're dealing with this on a lot of other 2-lane state highways across northern Colorado.
This isn't in the 10-year plan at all. I know it's not CI funding, but I mean, even if the problem is there,
Funding north of here.
if the problem is here regardless of the construction of this reservoir, then it would be accounted for in the 10-year plan, wouldn't it?
The 10-year plan funding is for north of here.
North of it, okay.
So my issue is equal to or better than is you're creating new facilities. So that's, and I could raise this offline, and Heather might be on the phone, I don't know.
She's not, but they're,
Pardon?
It's an upper front range project, and she's already got it in the queue for a safety study for 287. It's the next.
Will that
upper
include
front
all of
range
287 or?
It's my-
Including this part?
This part.
yeah, I
It's my
suppose we have
understanding.
several CDOT people online too, which I don't know if any of them have known.
So
Anyway,
this is James Usher here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're working very closely with Northern Water. So the 10-year project, we are going to focus north of the new section. I mean, ultimately, that's where we have the highest concentration of accidents, but also, the existing data. And as far as the layout with the new Northern Water alignment, it's one, I think, is the thing that's going to help is the wider shoulders, but also in the fact that it's just less exposure. If you look at the proposed alignment compared to the existing alignment, it's 3 miles shorter. So there's less exposure. There's the northbound climbing lanes. And also we're going to be separating all the Highway 14 traffic off that as well, because all the currently in that section, Highway 14 and 287s combined. So we'll be taking that. So there'll be less traffic on it. But that's something that I think it'd be a hard ask to go to Northern Water to ask them to put above and beyond what's out there right now, unless there was something overwhelming. And then there's something we can take Commissioner, we can take another look at just the accident concentration and see if there are any existing issues within that section that can be alleviated. But overall, I mean, we feel it's a much better alternative than what we have right now, and especially with it being 3 miles shorter than the existing alignment, and still having opportunities to pass in the northbound.
Great.
Thank
Sharing
you.
my concerns.
Yes, and I'll take those back to our team as well.
And then just, I mean, there'll be higher volumes because that'll be a recreation area at some point. So I have, has that been studied of like the kind of volumes that would need to?
Well, and the recreation area access is going to be on, correct, it's going to be off of Highway 14.
So are there accommodations being made in that particular, because 14 also holds issues.
Yes, but, so it's after the roundabout, 287 is mostly 4-lane, going around that bend past 54G and up to Ted's place. And so then Highway 14 will go to the west. And one of the parts of our permit is to engage, or is to create parking actually across from Ted's place so that we can see more carpooling, more sharing of vehicle traffic going up 14 by having this parking area at the mouth of the canyon.
They're gonna have boats.
Well, and so the boats are going to go, but the boat traffic is going to be on those 4 lanes, and then as Highway 14 goes to the west, then they'll enter that recreation area, similar to how they enter Horsetooth Reservoir now.
What incentives will there be for people to take the bus, like to park there and use the public transit as opposed to driving into the recreation?
Who's running the bus?
Well, I think that the anticipation would be that might be used by some rafting folks. It might be the Mishawaka folks. In terms of incentives, folks who have
So
other
that's what you
permits.
meant by the buses?
Yeah, so folks who have permits for recreation up that way, that's part of their incentive to make sure that they're using that. For the general public, I guess I'm hopeful that if there's, various groups that are doing recreation, that they can park there and take a single vehicle up. But that's, of course, going to be a much smaller number than the folks who are doing permitted recreation.
Other questions for Jeff? Anybody online? Sure, thank you. Very informative. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Let's move on in our action items. Action item number 11 is the Executive Director Annual Goals. Suzette, please.
So thank you. In December, I met with the executive committee to go over my goals for 2023. As many of you know, IIJA or bill or whatever one you want to call it, has laid out some new requirements for NPOs. So a couple of my goals for this next year are really focused around those. So one of the things that happened coming out of IIJA, we got additional planning dollars at 2.5% more to look at complete streets. So complete streets has a lot of definitions. We still don't have a lot of structure around that yet from federal guidance. So that is one of the things we're going to be working on. But we think that safety and complete streets sort of go hand in hand, because that really is sort of what happens when you start using the complete streets model. So we're hoping that we can sort of package those two things together. Anna Rose has been doing a lot of work on the safety side of things in the organization. And so we're hoping that we can bring those two pieces together for that first goal. Then the second goal, we have for those of you that have been in the MPO for a while, we have coming out of federal legislation what they call federal requirements. And they are things like you need to consider freight traffic, you need to consider different things, the environment. When we first started this, we had 8, now we have 10. And the latest one that got added, I put the quote out of the Federal Register on the memo that's on page 20. But they want us to promote consistency between transportation improvements and state and local housing patterns. Again, this is one of those things we really don't know what that means. MPO is not in the land use game. We do work with our local governments when we build our land use models that project into the future. What we think those development patterns are going to look like and how that impacts our transportation system. So we need to get more information on this as well, but we know we have to do something touching housing in this next plan that's going to be adopted by all of you in the fall. So that's another piece, another goal. And then the third goal for all of you that were at the US 34 Coalition meeting is doing the incubation for Transportation Management Organization on US 34. Right now we're talking about the limits from Kersey to Loveland, with the possibility of adding Estes Park into that. We have applied for a grant from CDOT, and all of you have agreed to set aside some MMOF funding. So if we get all that together, we should have a little over $237,000 for 2 years to get somebody hired to help stand the coalition up. So that is the third goal, and then I do continue my affiliation with NARC, or the National Association of Regional Councils. So those are my goals. The executive committee is our vice chair, John Mallow, past chair, Karspek, and then our chair. And so I don't know if the three of you have any comments on those or not, or if anybody else has any questions.
We did have a good conversation with Suzette on these. It seems to me that federal government is dictating much of our work, and that's something that we have to do. So therefore, our hands are a bit tied on being creative, but it's necessary work and work that you have to accomplish. So I certainly agree with that. And I think that the TMO that we're going to stand up in association with 34 is the priority, not only for that corridor, but quite frankly for the NPO, because it is encompasses a big chunk of our traffic. So all in all, I am very much approving of the goals that Suzette has discussed, and I encourage the council to adopt them. But that's my thought, Bill or John.
Well said.
Questions or comments? Well, there's no formal resolution. I think a motion just simply to accept the goals as stated would be in order.
I move to accept the goals for the executive director as stated.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Stevens, second by Mayor Pro Tem Hyde to approve the goals for Suzette as stated. Further discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, onwards to number 12, it's the FY 2025 additional allocations resolution. Rose, please.
Thank you. At the December meeting, I brought the council the proposal for additional allocations for all 5 of our funding programs. So that's 4 federal funding programs and 1 state funding program to award funds for 2023 to fiscal year 2025. There has been an update to the proposal that we brought last month that was sent out in handouts. At the beginning of this month, we received a reconciliation from CDOT that showed the amounts of funding that we had, the most current estimates that we have to award. And that funding was decreased by a certain amount, by about $300,000 over the 4 federal programs. The major takeaway from this is that all of the projects that we presented will still be fully funded. That hasn't changed, but we had to kind of switch around some of the funding years and the funding program splits to make sure that we could still continue to do that. After this additional allocations, we will still have just over $1 million to be able to award to further projects. Most of that funding is in later years in FY 25, so that will be discussions that we'll have with our technical advisory committee on how to proceed with awarding those funds.
Questions for Anna Rose on this? Okay, there is a resolution that's number 2023-01 to approve the additional allocations. Okay. Additional allocations of the FY 2023 through 2025 federal and state fund. Motion by Councilor Mallett, second by Councilor Canonico to approve resolution number 2023-01 of the North Front Range Transportation Airport Planning Council approving additional allocations of the FY 2023 through 2025 federal and state fund. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Anna.
Is that any better? Anybody online hear us?
Paula or whomever, how's this? Testing 1, 2. She's got radio experience 7 rows away. We can't hear you. Who's inside? No. Hey, let's do this. If you would send this. Use restart the meeting. If you can send that message to the folks. Hang on. I will just exit out of it and start it. Right. Yeah. Right, let's consider this a 5-minute recess. Shut it off. Turn it back on. And hey, you're about 85%. Oh, I know how to sign. Yeah. Well, I mean, everything. It shows like